Okay, think about this for a second. Have you ever imagined a massive global event, like a sprawling trade show or maybe a huge industry conference that just completely transcends physical limitations? A place where attendees from literally anywhere could connect, learn, do business, all without leaving their hometowns, or maybe even blend the physical and virtual experience seamlessly. Right, let's unpack this. You might recall our previous deep dive into 8agora. It's this platform that's really fundamentally reshaping how we think about digital spaces. We touched on its core tech, how it creates these immersive environments. But what we didn't fully explore were the really fascinating, tangible ways it's transforming specific industries, especially, when it comes to these large-scale events and exhibitions.
That's absolutely right. If our last chat kind of laid the groundwork for what 8agora is, fundamentally, today we're really drilling down into the practical side, the how does it actually work part. And we've got some new material that shines a light specifically on how this tech is, well, reimagining events and exhibitions, pushing them way beyond old limits and turning what used to be major hurdles into, frankly, massive opportunities.
Okay, so our mission today then is to give you a shortcut, a way to understand how 8agora isn't just trying to copy physical events online, but it's actually improving them, making them more accessible, definitely more engaging, and ultimately more profitable for everyone involved, from the person running the venue right down to the attendee checking out a virtual booth. So let's just quickly re-anchor ourselves here. The last few years, obviously, huge shift towards virtual, hybrid events. But why is this more than just a passing trend? What makes it feel like a permanent, fundamental
Yeah,
change?
what's really fascinating when you look at the material is how the core advantages of going virtual, they directly tackle the biggest limitations of purely physical gatherings. Think about it. Modern exhibitions, powered by this kind of tech, they're no longer restricted by geography or time zones or even the square footage of a convention center floor. Take global accessibility. That's the first big one. And it isn't just about cramming more people in. It's genuinely democratizing access to global markets. Imagine like a small, innovative startup somewhere, maybe in a developing nation. Suddenly, they can showcase their product to investors, buyers all around the world without the huge cost and hassle of travel.
Right, that barrier to entry just shrinks dramatically.
Exactly. And that ties straight into cost efficiency. Organizers save huge amounts on venue rentals, logistics. Exhibitors cut way down on shipping, booth construction, staff travel. It adds up fast. But it's not just about saving money. It's also about enhanced engagement and interactivity. These immersive spaces, they allow for really dynamic, customizable experiences, things you just couldn't do easily in a physical space.
So you're saying it's not just about reach or cost, but the quality of the interaction itself gets deeper.
Absolutely, a richer interaction.
Good.
Plus, you gain incredibly valuable data and analytics. Organizers get real-time insights. Who's visiting which booth, how long are they staying, what content are they interacting with. That allows for tweaks during the event and much smarter follow-up afterwards. And for attendees, there's huge flexibility and convenience. On-demand content means they can revisit talks, explore booths at their own pace.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then there are two other big ones: sustainability, less travel, fewer physical resources. It significantly cuts the carbon footprint. That's increasingly important, right?
Definitely.
And of course, safety and health. These platforms offer a secure way to keep things going, ensuring business continuity even when physical gatherings aren't possible or advisable.
So it really isn't just about trying to mimic a physical event online. It's about fundamentally improving the whole experience, extending its value, extending its reach. That's a key distinction. But I mean, building these massive interactive virtual worlds, it sounds incredibly complex, almost sci-fi. What were the big technical roadblocks holding this back before platforms like 8agora came along?
That's a great question because, yeah, before 8agora, trying to create these truly immersive virtual experiences, it hit some serious technical walls. The material we looked at outlines several critical challenges that really limited the scope or the quality or just plain access to these kinds of platforms. Think about how hard it used to be just to stream decent video, let alone an entire interactive 3D world.
Oh, yeah. I definitely remember some very glitchy virtual event experiences back in, 2020, 2021. So how does 8agora tackle those fundamental problems? What's different about their approach?
Well, it really starts with connectivity and device limitations. Traditional immersive stuff demanded huge amounts of data and powerful user devices to run smoothly. That meant you needed really high-speed internet. Often people talked about needing 5G everywhere, plus expensive gaming PCs or maybe VR headsets. It just wasn't accessible for most people or businesses.
Right. So no more endless buffering or needing $2,000 computer just to walk into a virtual expo hall. How do they actually make that possible?
This is where their core innovation really comes in. 8agora uses this highly sophisticated compression algorithm. It takes vast amounts of environmental and interaction data and shrinks it down into a single, incredibly efficient audio-video stream. We're talking less than 500 kilobits per second.
Wow.
Yeah, think of it like, I don't know, like video streaming tech. But for a fully interactive world, it means users can access these super complex virtual environments with just standard internet, basic broadband, even decent mobile connections. And crucially, no specialized hardware needed on their end. All the heavy lifting, the rendering, the processing, it happens on powerful cloud-based GPUs. So your standard work laptop, even a tablet or smartphone, can suddenly access this high-fidelity experience.
Okay, that's huge. That really is a game changer for just getting people in the door, virtually speaking. What about the experience once you're there? Those loading times. Sometimes you'd wait minutes for an environment to pop in. Or, people worried about VR signal.
Right. Another critical set of points the material addresses: slow loading and user comfort. These large, detailed virtual spaces can be incredibly slow to load onto a user's device if you do it the old way. Huge frustration point. And yeah, the motion sickness or fatigue from VR, that's a real concern for adoption.
So how does 8agora fix that? No more waiting for giant files to download just to, step inside a booth. And how do they make VR more comfortable?
Their cloud architecture completely bypasses user device downloads for the environment itself. It loads directly from the cloud onto that powerful GPU server we mentioned, and then it streams instantly to your screen. It feels like watching, say, a high-def Netflix stream, but it's a fully interactive virtual space loading instantly. And for the health aspect, 8agora supports both non-VR, just using your screen, and VR interaction modes. For VR users, the key is it supports streaming without solely relying on the headset's internal motion sensors to dictate the view for rendering, which is a common trigger for motion sickness. This makes it a much smoother, more comfortable experience, even for longer sessions.
That sounds incredibly user-friendly. But what about the people building and running these events? The organizers, the developers? Are they stuck with rigid software, stuff that takes ages to update or scale? And what about security? Always a big concern online.
Yeah, good points. That brings us to scalability, adaptability, and security. Traditional platforms, they could be really rigid. You'd need time-consuming recompiling just to make updates or add features, and installing software locally on users' machines or having lots of different network ports open. That just creates security vulnerabilities. Each one is a potential way in for attackers.
So if I'm an event organizer using 8agora, can I make changes quickly, like during the event? And how do I handle security so my IT team doesn't freak out?
Okay, so 8agora offers this flexible, cloud-based, real-time editing tool. Changes you make to the virtual environment, they're implemented instantly, no recompiling needed. That gives you incredible adaptability. You can evolve the space rapidly. And for security, first, they eliminate the need for local software installation entirely. It all runs securely in the cloud. Plus, all the network communication gets consolidated through a single standard HTTPS port. Think of it like having just one very heavily guarded front door instead of leaving lots of windows unlocked around the building. Much simpler, much more secure.
Okay, this is really starting to paint a picture. If 8agora solves these huge technical barriers, the bandwidth, the device needs, the loading times, the security, what does that actually unlock for the event experience itself? What can venue operators and exhibitors now do with this tech that just wasn't practical before?
Right. So what does this all mean for, say, the venue operator, the person running a whole show, and then for the individual exhibitor who's trying to showcase their products? The material we looked at gives a really detailed picture of the customizable solutions 8agora offers. Let's start with the venue operator. Imagine you run a physical venue, but suddenly its walls are gone, digitally speaking. What tools does 8agora give you?
Yeah, it gives them really unprecedented control and flexibility. Essentially, they can create and manage a persistent digital twin of their event space, or even invent entirely new spaces. First up is a fully customizable venue environment. Operators can design everything: branded lobbies, massive expo halls, main stages, smaller breakout rooms, networking lounges, you name it. They can support multiple zones, even multi-floor layouts, and fill it with sponsor branding, dynamic signage, banners, embedded videos, multimedia. It's not just a static backdrop, it's a living space.
Okay, so total design freedom.
Pretty much. And what's really clever is how this ties into booth leasing and management tools. Operators aren't just, selling static floor space anymore. They're managing this dynamic digital asset. They can easily assign and configure virtual booths for each exhibitor, offer flexible packages, maybe a simple booth for a single event, or maybe a long-term innovation center, which is like a persistent virtual showroom for a company. And this opens up entirely new avenues for hosting and monetization. Sell the digital booth space, sure, but also upgrades, premium locations, sponsorships like banners or featured spots, and they can even sell access to those detailed visitor analytics back to the exhibitors.
Ah, interesting. The data itself becomes a product.
Exactly, providing real value back to exhibitors. And things like those premium innovation centers offer long-term recurring revenue possibilities.
That's fantastic for the organizers. Now let's switch perspectives. Put yourself in the shoes of a company, an exhibitor. They want to showcase their products or services. How does 8agora give them a real edge? How does it go beyond just, a fancy website or a pre-recorded
It's
demo?
all about dynamic engagement and showcasing things in fundamentally new ways. Exhibitors get incredible control with custom booth design. They can upload their logos, banners, all the usual branding, but then they can embed videos, product catalogs, slideshows, links, host looping presentations, or have on-demand content ready, add interactive buttons, portals to other resources, and crucially, they can integrate interactive 3D product models. This moves beyond just looking at pictures into what you might call experiential commerce. Buyers can actually interact with, manipulate, and understand a product's form and maybe even function right there in the virtual space.
Okay, so you can actually pick up and spin around the 3D model of a product.
Yes, exactly. And one of the real standout features mentioned is the one-click access to innovation centers. From their booth, visitors can step through a virtual portal, like a doorway, straight into the company's dedicated, persistent virtual space. This could be anything: private meeting rooms, hands-on demo labs, elaborate 3D showrooms, and these places persist. They exist outside the main event schedule, can be reused, updated, rebranded. They become like a year-round digital flagship store or client center.
So it's like having your own permanent wing of the convention center that stays open 24/7 long after the main event closes its doors.
That's a great way to put it. And inside those booths and innovation centers, exhibitors get powerful interactive engagement tools. They can hold live meetings, one-on-one sessions using avatars, use collaborative tools like virtual whiteboards or scrum boards, those digital sticky note walls teams use for planning. They can live stream presentations, host live Q&As, and get this, they can even embed and demonstrate live cloud software directly within the virtual environment. Imagine giving a potential client a real-time trial of your software without them leaving the virtual booth.
Wow, okay, that's interactive.
And it gets even more impressive with the 3D product and digital twin integration. We mentioned uploading interactive 3D models. Standard formats like FBX, GLB are supported. But you can also sync these virtual models with live sensor data or telemetry from their real-world counterparts. Imagine seeing a virtual jet engine displaying real-time performance data pulled directly from a physical test rig. That's a digital twin in action.
That is seriously cool. Real world data driving the virtual display.
Exactly. And then there's the AI-powered communication and interaction. Beyond the general event AI, exhibitors can deploy AI assistants inside their own booths. These can answer common questions, give product overviews, maybe even pre-qualify leads, and route them to the right salesperson's avatar. Plus, there's real-time translation and transcription for conversations supporting over 200 languages. And the avatars themselves are pretty advanced. Facial expression mapping so they look more natural, lip syncing to the voice, natural body movement. Oh, and they can even exchange digital contact cards with a virtual handshake between avatars.
A virtual handshake. Okay, that really covers a lot. And the material mentions some other really cool, almost sci-fi sounding bonus features too, right?
Yeah, some neat additions. Things like built-in virtual cameras for recording 360-degree video walkthroughs or creating highlight reels. A snapshots app so attendees can take and share animated GIFs or even 3D frame photos from within the environment. There's mention of augmented reality features, like simulating scanning a virtual product with your phone to get more info. Teleportation tools for fast navigation across large spaces, and even embedding literally any web-based software like a custom dashboard or control panel directly into a virtual booth or maybe a virtual control room.
It's an astonishing level of integration.
Absolutely. And if you connect all these dots, the big picture is that the platform fully supports a truly hybrid environment. People at the physical event, maybe looking at a smart display or using a tablet, can interact seamlessly with virtual attendees and exhibitors, and vice versa. It really starts to blur those lines between physical and digital participation.
So we're definitely talking about more than just virtual trade shows here. What other specific kinds of events or use cases does the material suggest really benefit from this deep integration?
The flexibility really opens it up. You could have product expos with those interactive 3D displays as a core feature. Medical conferences could embed complex case studies or host specialized virtual labs as breakout rooms. Think about corporate briefings streamed securely to global stakeholders within an immersive branded environment. Investor demos where potential investors get private, one-on-one access to those persistent innovation centers for deep dives. You could run retail or CPG showcases, CPG being consumer packaged goods, and potentially sync those virtual displays directly with e-commerce backends for purchasing. Or things like educational expos and job fairs with virtual recruiter booths and private chat rooms for initial interviews. The list goes on.
This whole deep dive, it really paints this picture of an event venue becoming, well, like a living, breathing digital twin. It stops being just a physical space you rent for 3 days. It becomes this persistent, year-round hub that never really closes its doors. And that feels like it genuinely democratizes access, doesn't it? For businesses of all sizes to global markets.
Precisely. That's the core idea. 8agora enables this hybrid-ready, future-facing exhibition hub. Exhibitors get visibility that lasts way beyond the few days of an event. Attendees can participate meaningfully from anywhere, on pretty much any device. And the event teams, they can offer a truly cutting-edge experience without needing a complete and very expensive overhaul of their physical infrastructure. It boils down to delivering real, measurable value before the event even starts, during the event itself, and critically, long after the virtual doors have closed.
So thinking about all this, what does it mean for you listening right now? We've explored how 8agora is really pushing the boundaries, changing what's possible for events and exhibitions. But beyond just the cool features, it sparks a pretty provocative thought, doesn't it? If physical and digital spaces can merge this seamlessly, creating these persistent digital twins of venues, products, interactions, what other parts of our lives might be ready for a similar transformation? Maybe local communities, education, maybe even things like public services.
That's a really important question to ponder. How will our expectations evolve? Our expectations for interaction, for building community, for commerce? As these boundaries between the virtual and the physical keep getting blurrier, what new opportunities, maybe even new challenges, emerge from that convergence?
Definitely something fascinating to mull over. Until our next deep dive.